My name is Euodia Samson, and amongst other things, I've been an actress for the last 28 years, and I'm a tension and trauma specialist, a therapist, I'm a counsellor, and I'm a mother of 3 sons, and I've been married for 27 years. In the 70s and 80s, we had a lady called Mrs. Bartlett. Mrs. Bartlett was responsible for taking young girls in primary school, all of us from 7, 8, 9 years old, and on Saturdays, we would all come together for ballet, modern jazz, classical dance, folk dance at Silverleaf Ballet School. And so many of us that came through Mrs. Bartlett's hand and school at ballet at school and dance at school ended up becoming professionals. And then I remember distinctly the best thing for me as I then discovered that I'm actually creative. I wasn't very good at academics, but art class at school, in primary school, was the best thing. And Mrs. Jacobs, she was a lady with leather shoes and 2 plaits and drove a little Foxy Beetle car. She was our art teacher, and the stuff that she imposed on us through the arts, the visual arts, you know, making clay instruments and painting and drawing and sketching and creating stuff in my primary school days probably was instrumental for me to have a love for art, for wanting to go see real art, to going to the museums. And you know, as a colored girl from the Cape Flats in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have access to this, and she was instrumental of taking us to go to the museums in the gardens. I think arts education is important for a holistic learner. I love to study neuroscience as a therapist, and it is well documented that creative arts crosses the left and the right brain and makes for a full neuro capacity when you do arts. And they actually say musicians are good mathematicians because something about music has the same dense capacity brain connections as to understand maths. So I think there is something about the creative arts that not only heals the soul and not only gives expression to sometimes deep internal stuff for you to express yourself just as a human being, but it connects with us with our deep intrinsic authentic self. I think for me, acting is storytelling, and specifically we actors of color that have for years not been allowed to tell our stories in our own voice. I find that the most enjoyable and the most passionate thing is to tell stories through a character. And in the early 90s, when of our first works and our stories started being on TV through Onder Engele, Tussen Duivels. I was in Tussen Duivels, Grootgawe. It was the first of its kind for TV in the 90s, where our stories told through colored voices were portrayed. And over the years, I've always taken on that I'm a voice for the voiceless. I'm the auntie, I'm the granny, I'm the mother, I'm the woman on the Cape Flats trying to raise her children to the best of her abilities in spite of the circumstances that, in the environmental circumstances. We're just trying to survive. And that is always the best thing that I enjoy about acting. Get something else as a backup. Not a backup, something that supplements your income. Because acting in this country, first of all, you can't live on acting alone because the roles are few and far between unless you're on one of the soapies, and even that, when a character gets introduced in a soapie, it's always in a 3-month increment, and then they find out is your character being liked and the market research, and then they will write you more and more in, but it's never guaranteed that that you have a full contract and forever and ever, unless you're part of the core and the principal characters. And also diversify. Me as an actor, I'm a voice artist, so I do radio ads and radio spots. I do motivational talks, I do workshops, and some of us have supplemented our acting careers with teaching acting. I know Abdurrahman Adams, he teaches Jill, teaches private acting lessons. So you can't just be an actor. We aren't Hollywood. I was never afraid to learn from the greats. I mean, walking on stage with the late Charlene Soorti Richards, the intimidation, and Denise Newman and June van Mesh. I was from the youngest of that lot. And I remember being so anxious and nervous because ek is nie 'n regte actress nie. And Charlene just said, "Nee jong, kom. If you here, then you must be good." And she literally took me under her wing, and I sat at all the greats' feet and just watched and observed and learnt. I mean, my mouth hung open to watch Charlene create. And Denise Newman creating in a rehearsal room, let alone being on stage. And they were pedantic about it. If Charlene delivered a line, she walked, and I counted 1, 2, 3, look, turn, say the line, look back, and then sit down and breathe out. That pedantic she was, and you don't mess with that if you play opposite her, because it's on the line, the reaction will come from the audience. As she breathes out, there's an audience reaction, and she perfected that. And I learned from that. And recently, on the set of Arend's Play playing Auntie Hazel, I could watch from the young actors and go, okay, look at that passion, look at that energy, look at that intensity with what that young vibrancy that I remember when I started, and hunger to know and to do it properly. I could go, that's how it should be. I could learn from them. So I think mentorship is absolutely important. I have to go back and remember what Charlene taught me. No matter how famous you are, no matter the awards, I mean, she won 66 awards in her lifetime, in her career. No matter the accolades and no matter the fame, that you only as good as your last job. It doesn't matter that you won this. Môre as jy klaar is and it's a wrap on that scene, or thank you, the last curtain call on the stage for the play, you need to go and scurry for the next job. And nobody cares really if you got awards or you've been around for 25 years. It doesn't really matter. And what I also learned from Charlene, your attitude in a production, your personal attitude, your attitude on a set. Sometimes people would rather go, she's good, but daar's altyd issues op 'n set. She's always got a thing. Daar's altyd goedes. If you had an attitude of professionalism, you come and you do the work, and you have Jy's lekker opgeset. Jy's altyd friendly, you're accommodating within reason, and you are a joy to work with. People will always give you work, and your reputation as a person will precede actually your talent sometimes, because when you are a troublesome actress on a set, people would rather go with a lesser talent than give you work. And that's few of the important things Charlene taught me, and that's why I always say you're only as good as your last job. You must also decide what type of actress you're going to be and what type of artist. You must have your niche. I, very early on, decided that I won't play prostitutes, for instance. Nudity was something that I shied away from. I would always negotiate with the director, is it absolutely necessary for nudity? Especially as a young actress, because there is the tendency that you get typecast eventually as the pretty young slut, prostitute number 2 in some stuff, or the vivacious girly. And very early on my career, I actually said no, and sometimes I'm like, oh, the money was so good and I need the money, but I needed to be very firm in managing the type of actress that I wanted to be. And then, have you got an agent? And because unfortunately, a lot of the work comes through agents, and a good agent will fight for you. Sometimes you have to also say to your agent, but no, because your agent, but take it, it's the only thing that's coming now. And you have to be firm about where you are and who you are and what you want to represent, and your brand. And sometimes I had to have strong conversations with my agents, say, I won't do that. I unfortunately don't think that is right for me, and no, I'm sorry, but I'm declining. The integrity of a country is seen by the quality of the arts and how it's managed and how much money is invested in the arts. So it's imperative, whether it's going to listen to classical music, whether it's a concert, whether it's a jazz, whether it's watching plays, new plays coming up, creating new plays, to have this voice for a new generation to stand and to have the conversation, because music and art and creativity, slam poetry, and even dance and hip hop, and it's all sometimes a vehicle for expression for where we are in the world today. So it's imperative to expose our kids, young kids, to arts, and we also be the example to tell our younger generation to go to these things and to support the arts.